Okay, here we go. We're going to change out the parts inside of this toilet here that's been leaking, costing me a fortune in water because the insides of the toilet have become worn out with age. You can see the inside is pretty beat up and stuff. I've actually already changed the insides of this toilet twice. It's about 25-year-old toilet. We put it in the basement here when we got a newer one for upstairs. But you can see that everything's pretty beat up and old. Usually what happens is these rubber flappers on the seal there goes bad. So you leak water down into the toilet and the fill valve goes bad. So it doesn't make a good shut off here. It's actually rubbing. The original one was a little shorter arm, but this is the only one they had at the Home Depot or whatever when I bought it. So I'm going to change out all the parts inside here. First we start with our hose, the shut off here. I like these little push button wrenches. One wrench is about all you need for this job. It's pretty simple. An adjustable wrench, slip joint pliers, anything like that will work. It's a pretty straightforward repair job. This used to have an old toilet in here that we took out and replaced because it was so old you couldn't get parts for it anymore. It had the old brass parts in it, which are getting hard to find. So we changed that out, put this one in its place. Now you can just go to the Home Depot, buy yourself a kit for whatever part happens to be leaking. If you're losing water down into the toilet, it just seems to be dribbling water in there, you can just get yourself a new fill valve. The thing that wears out the most often is the drain stopper here. That little flap here seems to wear out first. I shut this off and drained it out, and it dried out. Seeing as how it's winter, it dried out pretty well in here without having to get too carried away. You can clean the inside of the toilet out here with a sponge and a bucket or one of those little siphon hoses. You can buy a little siphon hose that has a little actuator. I have a little gadget that is made for sucking the oil out of cars. That's helpful. These things, they get worn, they get out of shape and stuff like that around here, and then they don't make a good seal anymore. To the plastic there in the bottom. We're going to take out this whole mechanism of this thing. Change everything so it's all nice and new. Seems you got something rusting away in here. It's all full of rust. Looks like something is really rusty. I can't believe all that rust is just from the top of my... Oh, there must have been something in there. It's weird. I got so much rust from just the top of a bolt that's brass. It seems like it collected the rust that's in the water. They don't really make exactly the right length of hose for every use. They kind of make them in general sizes. This one's probably like an 8-inch or 9-inch or whatever it's called. So if you go to Home Depot or Lowe's or whoever, yeah, this is the 9-inch. You'll find this is a couple models of hoses. So you have two different hoses. They both say toilet, but one of them is for a 3/8 inch valve, and one of them's for a 1/2 inch female iron pipe to a valve. So depending on what you have, this is your standard compression fitting that would go onto one of these quick shut-off valves that you have from, you know, your sink and your toilet and stuff. And then the other one is like if you had a big, heavy-duty, regular piece of pipe valve with a threaded fitting rather than a compression fitting. So you don't have to get too carried away with the thing. I buy the gigantic one, save yourself a lot of aggravation by buying the long one that's like 20 inches long. And that way you just make yourself a little loop here when you go to put the pipe in. You only barely have to turn it a little bit just to get it where you want it. You know, enough to snug it up. You don't need to make it crazy tight or you'll damage the rubber and will defeat the whole purpose here. So just turn it enough that it feels snug. Doesn't have to be crazy, you know, heavy duty. These things should be changed whenever you do the toilet, like every 5-10 years, whatever. You know, depending on your water where you live, you may find you need to do it much more often. But around here, the water's not that bad. And you can get the thing changed out. About every 5-10 years, and it's usually good enough. Because I'm upside down here, you're going to be unscrewing it as if you were tightening it, rather than if you were loosening it. This is the little plastic nut. Some of them have a wing nut on them that's easy to turn by hand. This one's an older one, and the nut is plastic, but it hasn't got those big wing nuts on them that are easy to grab with your fingers. So I have to actually use the pliers a little bit. Once you get it loose, hopefully you can turn it by hand if you actually get it loose enough that you're not being pressed in there by the rubber fitting. There's only a few things on here that really leak usually, assuming your ceramic bowl isn't broken or something. You've got a couple rubber seals on the bolts at the bottom, usually 2, and you got a rubber seal for the actual toilet itself from the top mechanism here to the bottom, the bowl. And that keeps the water from leaking out. Well, this is going to be uncooperative. There. Well, let's see, it's going to make me get underneath there and look what I'm doing, because it does not want to come loose. Alright, now we got it loose. It's easy to get off. It's just a plastic nut on plastic. We're going to switch to the newer style so you don't have to worry about how long this Part of the problem with this one was the arm was too long, and we wound up twisting it around in different lengths. So you can buy these in a couple varieties. I say buy the best one, and you can buy a kit depending on what you think is leaking. It's usually easier just to buy everything at once. But usually what you want to do is set the height of this before you put it in there. Make it a little easier on yourself. There's different ways of adjusting the heights, but basically I usually try and set these ones that are nice straight up and down ones in there with the height of it just about right at the top of the tank. So we'll set this in here and we'll go, oh, okay, we need to go all the way up to there. And we're probably going to go up a little bit. So you can see this thing releases. You pull it up, adjust it to the height you want. Lock it back in place. That might be close enough. Maybe a little higher. So when this comes up, you want this to be a little bit less than an inch from the top of this tube, so the water doesn't overflow and run down the tube. That was happening with the old one. It was kept on filling after the tube was already up there. It would keep right on filling and it would run down the tube and fill up the tank. So you'd constantly be running water and wasting a lot of water. So I'll go up a hair more, can't hurt. Right? There we go, pretty easy. You just flip that little lever up. There's instructions inside the lid there. Every model's a little bit different. Some of them just twist. Some of them you just pull them up and down. Probably should put the little hose on first. This thing has two hoses apparently, one for filling and one for the overflow there to put in the overflow tube. And that basically fills up the bowl of the toilet. So there's a little valve on here, a little green valve. You can, I don't know if you can see it, but it's adjustable. This little valve here, see? This little valve can be opened or closed. That's open, and that would be closed. And the more open it is, the faster the toilet's going to fill up with water. And the more you're going to have water running in the toilet till it fills completely and shuts the valve off. Then it'll stop this too. This runs past, comes out there, and goes right into the toilet bowl. So if you want more water in the toilet bowl and you want it to fill up faster and rinse a little better, you'd turn it fully open. But it's a little noisier, more water splashing around, so you wasted an extra 2 ounces of water. So if you want to, you know, make it a little quieter and just get the right amount of water, you could tweak that around a little bit. You know, you want to check your seal here. Make sure there's no knocks or dirt on it or anything. I don't know why it collected so much rust. These are brass bolts that go in here. But somehow, the rust that goes in the water itself, I think. You know, dirt and stuff collected in the on top of those bolts and cause like a collection of rust on there. I don't know why, but anyway, I will put this in here. There's also a hose that goes on the bottom down there. Let me pause a second here. Alright, here we are, back again. I vacuumed out the bottom of the tank a little bit, and you can see that that other hose lays in the bottom of the tank there. I cleaned it out, put that hose in there. You just lay it in there so it's supposed to swirl water around in the bottom of the tank, help prevent dust and sediment, I guess. And the length is just cut off with a knife or something on the end and slid on there before you stick it in. I vacuumed it out a little bit to make it a little bit cleaner and easier to see in there and stuff, what's going on and everything. But we're going to stick on our little flapper valve we got here. This basically is nothing more than a seal for the water in the tank to keep it in there so it doesn't drip out into the bowl. Of course, in their directions they'll tell you, you know, stick it in there and make it perfect, all that. But basically the chain length is adjustable here. You can set it so that when you pull this all the way up, you know it's going to hit the top of the tank just a little bit above this lip here. So you want it to pull it up enough that it's up here, but yet have enough chain that there's some slack. So what you can do is just, you know, change the position of this hook on here. You don't have to actually cut the chain. You can just move it down. We got like a good extra inch here or something of slack. You want it when it's fully closed to have a little bit of slack in it so that you don't wind up. Alright, so we come up here. That'll pretty much fully open it. This has a little float in it, and that lets your water float the thing up, and once the water starts going down, then it'll close itself. It keeps the thing fully open, and there actually is numbers on this that you can spin it around and adjust it to different positions depending on whether you want more flush or less flush. It's supposed to give you little things, there's little numbers on there on this fancy model. This is their premium top of the line Ultra X2, so that you spin it around and adjust the dial to they give you little numbers 1 through 6, and you're supposed to pick what model of toilet you have and blah blah blah. You know, this is actually, it says a 4036 American 30 standard 1.6 gallon model, but according to this, you know, we're supposed to be, I would guess, somewhere in the 6 range. So we could adjust this if we want to 6. It has like little numbers on the bottom here. It's already at 6, you can see on there. Hopefully you can see the numbers. That little number there lines up with this arrow on the bottom, and that's supposed to give you the amount of flush time that it floats before it closes to give you the best flush. Personally, I'd rather use a little bit more water, because then you don't wind up flushing the toilet twice to get it clean. That's basically all there is to changing the parts in the bottom of the toilet. These things here, you know, normally don't need to be changed much unless you're seeing water on the floor. You shouldn't have a problem with changing them. Our hose here, the reason why I go with the big hose is that you can just make a loop, and then you need to spin it around, and the bigger the hose is, the less kink there is in the hose. So you rotate the hose around, and you make yourself a giant loop-de-loop. You know, because it's very difficult. They only make so many lengths of hoses. I'd actually need like something like a 6-inch hose here, because it's fairly close. But Instead, I'll make a loop. Probably could put the loop so it's underneath better. We'll twist it the other direction. Then it'll be underneath here. That way, it's out of the way. Won't get dirty as much. Won't collect as much dirt. And won't be as unsightly. But the longest one they have there usually is about a 20-inch. Depending on what store you're going to. Not many people are using more than a 20-inch hose for their toilet. Let's see if I got that on there straight or not. These are all hand-tight fittings. We can just turn this on. Oh, not quite tight enough. You just want to tighten it just enough to get it in there nice. Feels like it's a little bit crooked. Not quite tight enough yet. I don't like to tighten them too much because then they twist. There we go. This hose is on the wrong side here. Could be a little shorter. So you can adjust this little green valve to make it quieter. And then you're supposed to check the level of water in the toilet to see if the water level comes up with where it's supposed to be. If it's way, way up, then you're filling too fast. And you'll actually be kind of rinsing the toilet a little more, but it wastes a little bit of water. So once we get it all the way up to where we want it, okay, we can see that this adjustment on top here is how you make your final adjustment. We're pretty close. I'd say that's like 3/4 of an inch, which is probably good enough. But usually you can tighten or loosen this little thing here by hand. It has a little knob on top, and you can move it up or down. If you turn it, it actually, you can see I'm pushing the plunger down into the thing. That'll lower the water level by going this way, by going counterclockwise. If I'm going clockwise, I'll actually raise the water level. It was already set to as high as it could be on there. It bumped right into the bottom of this valve. So if I flush it, that should stay up until the thing is all the way flushed. And this little water thing is swirling the water around, that blue tube, I guess. Instead of just dumping the water at the bottom of the tower, it's swirling it around a little bit in there. And as they said, you can adjust this little green valve. See, it's only giving a little bit of water, or a whole lot of water out of this tube. See? So you adjust that to fill the toilet bowl to just the right height, a little bit higher than what it normally sits, just so that it has enough water in it. Yeah, now we're a hair low, we're like 1.25 inches. So, like I said, you can adjust this a little bit. And if you really want to be picky, if you think that your valve is leaking or something, and you're getting water somehow sneaking down into the toilet, you can put dye in the back of the toilet here, some food coloring or something, and find out whether or not the toilet is leaking. You really want to get everything out and get the best flush. Let it run for a minute. Rinse out all the water. See that little jet coming out of here and over there that are really rinsing the bottom of the tank, which is why I guess they gave you that blue tube to help clean the bottom of the tank from rust collection and sediment, dirt, when they flush the main toilet, the lines for the sewer out on the street. take a hair off of this hose. Seems a little long to me. Take a little bit off so it doesn't hit the lid of the toilet. Now hopefully it won't hit the lid of the toilet. And like I said, you can adjust this thing to give you the best rinsing or save a little bit of water if you want. Depending on where you live, where we live, there's really not a big water shortage problem. Alrighty. This toilet never gets used. It's not really dirty, it's just full of rust. This is in the weird bottom basement room here that nobody ever wants to use. You know, so basically it's all rust stains and stuff, which I just need to clean out a little bit. But that's about it for the toilet parts replacement there. And you can check it and make sure nothing's dripping or anything. I think I got a tiny little dribble. I'll have to tighten that thing up a little more. Alright, thanks for watching.